Okay, I've got a problem with my LG 10 kilogram front loader washing machine. What it's doing is, well, I figured out what the problem was, but what it's doing is when you put the power on, I was unable to change the selector switch. It would stay as is. No other buttons would operate other than the power button, and obviously at the power point. What I've narrowed down to is the start and pause switch was constantly or intermittently touching the button behind this. So this button basically was on. So when this was on, and when you put the power on, you were unable to select the selector here, switch, or any other switches for that matter. So what's happened is this is 10 years old, and this is probably one of the best, or the best washing machine I've ever owned, and I can't speak highly enough of it. So this is the WD-1219BD model, and it's an LG brand. It's 10 years old, never had any problems. So what it is, it's 10 years old now, and I think the heat and it's finally caught on to it, and basically it's warped this plastic panel enough. You can't really tell, but just looking at it, it's warped it enough to make the start and pause button continually touching the switch behind it. I was able to figure it out because I was playing with it. I was moving it around, and it was intermittently going off and on, off and on. So what I've done is 3 screws. I didn't have to, thank goodness, I didn't have to remove the washing machine because it's a fairly heavy unit. There's 3 screws that just behind here, just on the top. So there's 1, 2, 3. I've taken it off, and I'll show you what I've done now. I've taken that panel off, and this controller here was screwed in on top of that. So I've taken 7 screws off that and narrowed it down, and this is what's behind the start and push button, which is this rocker switch. I call it a rocker switch. So for us to push it from behind, look at that. Right, just trying to get that on camera. It's a very minimal, try to get the best angle, but basically there's 2 parts to this switch. So when you push it up, which it goes up, when this part is pushed, because that's the button on the other side, this goes down, which brings up this lever here, and that pushes up. So push this, goes down. It's like a basically it's like a pivot. So there's a pivot point here, and this goes up, this little plastic. You can't really see it well. Yeah, see if we can get a closer look. Okay, so this plastic tip right there, so when this goes up, there you go, there's a better shot of it. So you push it from the other side, and this goes up, and in turn that touches this switch here. There's a micro switch right there. It's not focusing. So that pushes the switch, so right there. So what's happening is this plastic, which is this cover here, has tightened up. So now it's pushing up against this button. So it's constantly touching and holding the switch down there. So winter time, didn't really notice any problems, and well, it was 37, I think 37 degrees yesterday Celsius, and it got the humidity in here was 80 degrees, sorry, 80% humidity, and I think that was the one that triggered it. So at least I've narrowed down the problem, and I had no doubt this is definitely the problem, because this is the push button which connects to this lever action push button switch. So in my opinion, this is probably over-engineered. I don't know what they were thinking at the time, but it worked. When it worked well, it worked really well. But as you can see, there's just far too many moving parts. So this is obviously, I don't know what the reason behind this is. Probably make it waterproof. But once again, the plastic move over the years. They expand, they contract, and hard to believe that this couple of plastic is enough to disable this very reliable, or was very reliable washing machine, and expensive as well, and all because it's touching that micro switch. Anyway, right there. So what I've tried to do is try to remove this plastic part here, this lever here. There's two parts, that one and this one. So either one, I was trying to remove that, and I managed to take one of the levers out, just carefully prying it out with a screwdriver, and then I stopped and put it back in, because I'm thinking, well, this is 10 years old, the plastic's probably most likely become brittle by now, and I don't need this plastic to snap, which, as you know, plastic like this type of plastic can snap very easily. The same with this one here. So what I'm proposing to do is take a little bit off the top here. So even though this is pushing up against there, I'm just going to take a bit off using maybe a knife or a sandpaper, and put it back in and test it out, because I don't want to take a chance taking this out and snapping the plastic holders on each side and end up replacing the whole lot, and it's just, or try to re-glue it, which is impossible to do. I'll have a closer look again. Hang on. Okay, I'm about to scrape just a little bit off this tip here. There's not much room to use a blade or a file, because it's totally flat there. So what I've opted to use, or I'm going to use, is this Dremel. The Dremel tool, Dremel 2000, looks like an L or an I. Well, anyway, and it's got a actually sandpaper attachment to it. And I'm just going to take, and I've covered the area, because I don't want any dust in there. This is going to be behind, and it's going to be on top of this control panel or the CPU. So let's go. Let's see if this works. Taking a little bit off, but maybe just a touch more, and it's obviously catching onto this cloth. Okay. Okay, it's taken off a little bit of a layer, hard to tell how much, but I'm going to put it all back together and test it out. Okay, so I put it back in. I didn't put all the screws back in, I just put a couple screws here on the other side, and there's one up here, so it's still a bit loose, but just to test it out. So here's a big test. Put the power on. Turn on the machine. Okay, test it out. Okay, so the selector's switch is working, so it tells me that this button is not currently being engaged. But let's test it out. So this is ready basically to fire up. As soon as I hit this button, the washing machine will start up. So before I do that, I'll play around with the panels around it, see if it's actually connecting. Nope, must have done the job. Because whereas before I taken a thin layer off, you could touch the panels here and it would engage the switch. So now so far so good. But once again, I haven't put all the screws back in yet, but so far initial testing is good. Now, does it start? And it does. And does it stop? Okay, so that's one I wanted to check, that I haven't taken too much of it off. Although there is a backup. If I did end up taking too much out of it, I would have needed something, put some, I don't know, 2-pack resin on top of it, just build up the layers again. But obviously you want to get it right the first time. So at this point in time, looks like I'm taking just enough layers off to stop this thing from engaging. But I'll be 100% sure once I put all the screws back in and do another test. So far so good. Okay. So I'm just going to show you the process of how to take this panel off. As stated, there's 3 screws, which is from the top. There's 1 screw hole there, 1 there, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the end. So it's easy to get to, even though I'm very close to the wall. It's able to take those 3 screws off. And when those 3 screws are off, all you have to do is just pull this back, so, and it exposes the panel, control panel at the back here, which there's 7 screws all up. There's 1 here, 1 there, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 all up all around. And I'm just going to show you with that switch. See, that's where the rocker switch is. The over-engineered switch. So you press it from here, and the fulcrum or the pivot pushes that down and pushes the switch up there. So I'm going to go ahead and put all the screws back in and make sure it's all lined up. And one way to check that it's actually lined up before you tighten everything is this knob here. Obviously I've turned the power off, so for safety. So this knob will tell you if you align it perfectly, because you can feel it. I can feel it now. I don't know if you can hear it. It's touching the because you only have a couple of mil. So if you closer look at it, it's close on this end. It's very close and very bit of distance there. So I'm just going to line it the back. So I'll hardly put that back together so I could test it. But now I'm going to put all the screws back in. So line it all up, tighten it, not too tight, and have a feel of this. If it's nice and it's freewheeling, then, or free turning, then you can go ahead and tighten all the screws. Okay, so I put all the screws back in. It's I had a couple of goes, maybe 3 goes, to get the to find the sweet spot. So this is it's not touching the side. So at the moment, it's I'm happy with it. It's pretty much where I want it to be, and it's like I said, it's free turning at the moment. And like I said, it took me about 3 goes, mainly because there's no actual, because there is actually a bit of ply, a couple of mil ply on each screw, so you could go either way. So obviously, when it was first assembled, they would have had a jig where they do stay in one spot, and they got it first time round. But I found that it wasn't as easy. It wasn't that easy, but it took me a couple 3 goes, and I was able to get that right. So put all the screws back in, and to put this panel back in, it's pretty straightforward. There is a guide, which is here. This one, there's a little guide nodule there, and there's another one on the other side, and on the front part. I'm just going to do this one-handed. So there's a couple of, I don't know if you can see that. There's metal strips or just pieces sticking on the bottom, and there's slots that goes in there. So basically just tilt it back again and find the slots, which it sits on. There you go, already sat in there. I'm doing this one hand, and all it is just matter of pushing it back to the back, and it's done. There you go. And just have to put the 3 screws back on. We don't need two hands for that, so, and then we'll test it. Okay, I've tightened all the screws on the back, and that's the way it is. That's normal. It's got a little bit of movement, but like I said, that's the design of it. Now to test it. The power. Yeah, the telltale test is a selector. There you go. Now, like I said last time, when it was we had that problem, I was pressing around here and it stopped and started the machine. So this is the test. Giving it a really good shake. So all the other buttons is working. Now, can I turn it on? Job's done.